A fragile figure stands in silence, caught between light and shadow. A soft, spectral glow spills over her white gown, the fabric pooling like liquid moonlight upon the darkened floor. Her eyes, veiled by a pale cloth, search for the world she can no longer see. With trembling hands, she reaches forward, not toward salvation, but toward inevitability. Beside her, a man in black and crimson stands as still as judgment itself, his hand resting upon an axe, the promise of what must follow. Between them, another figure lingers, an elder, his touch gentle, his eyes hollow with pity. He becomes, for an instant, a barrier between mercy and machinery, between the doomed and the one who must doom her. Behind, two women crumple under grief's unbearable weight, one collapsed, face buried in her arms. The other turned not to Jane, but to the wooden block, as if staring into the heart of destiny itself. They cannot bear to look, yet they cannot look away from what they already know. At Jane's feet waits the block, plain, dark, unyielding, iron rings braced at each corner, like the tethering posts of a slaughtered innocence. Straw lies scattered beneath, humble, golden, prepared to drink what must be spilled. Around them rise cold stone walls, and on the far side, the ghost of a mural whispers of Fortune's wheel, the ancient reminder that power turns, and with each turn, another soul is crushed beneath it. Here, within this chamber, light becomes theology. It sanctifies the condemned, condemns the executioner, and casts the rest of the world into shadow. This is the execution of Lady Jane Grey, painted in 1833 by Paul Delaroche, a painting that rewrote history through beauty and grief, a painting that was once believed lost forever. For half a century, it was thought destroyed, drowned in the Thames flood in 1928, vanished beneath the weight of mud and memory. But art, like truth, resists burial. In 1973, a curator searching through the National Gallery's archives found it again, discolored, damaged, mislabeled. Through 8 years of careful restoration, layer by layer, Delaroche's light returned, resurrected from darkness, much like the story it told. But what story was it telling? Lady Jane Grey, the girl who ruled for 9 days. 17 years old, brilliant Protestant, thrust onto a throne she never sought. After the death of Edward VI, she was proclaimed queen in a desperate political game played by men hungering for power. But her claim was brief. Mary Tudor, the rightful heir, raised her banners and took back the crown. Jane's father rebelled once more and sealed his daughter's fate. Her execution was real, but not like this. It happened in daylight, upon an open scaffold, before the public eye. Yet Delaroche paints her, not before a crowd, but alone, entombed in shadow, wrapped in silence. Because his goal was not to recount history, it was to make us feel it. Delaroche lived in post-revolutionary France, a nation scarred by its own guillotines, haunted by fallen kings and broken crowns. He did not paint for textbooks, he painted for the conscience. And this was not his first encounter with death. Before Jane, he had painted the princes in the tower, 2 innocent boys awaiting murder, bathed in the ghostly half-light of doom. He had painted the death of Elizabeth I, a queen facing her own decline, surrounded by the silence of faded grandeur. He had painted Cromwell and Charles I, the victor gazing upon the coffin of the king he overthrew, power staring at its own reflection in mortality. Each paints need their own video, but again and again, Delaroche returned to the same moment, the breath before the blade, the hush before the fall. He painted not death itself, but the human awareness of it, the trembling space where history and heart collide. In the execution of Lady Jane Grey, that collision reaches perfection. Technically, it is a symphony of chiaroscuro, light sculpting emotion, shadow thick with theology. The eye is drawn first to her white gown, luminous against the void, each fold of satin seems to breathe its delicate ripples, forming halos of purity around her. The executioner's red and black attire bleeds into the gloom, the palette of violence itself. Between them, the lieutenant's muted tones bridge the moral chasm, compassion poised between cruelty and sacrifice. Every detail matters, the iron rings on the block, relics of submission. The straw, silent witness to blood's return to dust. The two grieving women, mirrors of the audience weeping, so we need not. And the faint mural of Fortune's wheel, a reminder that all power spins and all who rise one day fall. Delaroche's genius lies not in accuracy, but in empathy. He knew the painting's falsehood, that Jane's execution took place outside, in the cold light of day. But he chose the dungeon for its truth of feeling. He turned history into theatre, light as spotlight, gesture as dialogue, silence as sound. He directed emotion as much as image. Victorian audiences were enthralled. They did not question its factual errors, because their hearts believed it. And belief, Delaroche knew, is the ultimate brushstroke. Years later, when the painting lay submerged beneath floodwater, the irony was profound. A work about innocence, drowned by power itself, drowned beneath a nation's river. Yet when it resurfaced, stained, cracked, fragile, it seemed more alive than before, as though it too had lived through the centuries it depicted. A painting that had died and been reborn, just like the girl it immortalized. Today, the execution of Lady Jane Grey hangs in the National Gallery of London, glowing softly beneath museum light. Crowds stand in silence before it, not as historians, but as witnesses. They do not look for fact, they feel for truth. Because what Delaroche gave the world was not the scene as it happened, but the feeling of what it meant. He turned a political tragedy into a spiritual one, a historical execution, into a meditation on innocence, fate, and the cruelty of time. And perhaps that is why this lie feels more real than the truth, because through the eyes of art, emotion becomes its own kind of history. Through Delaroche's brush, the girl who reigned for 9 days now reigns forever, not on a throne of gold, but upon the quiet altar of memory. But tell me, when you look into this scene, do you see a death of girl or the birth of legend? I would love to read your thoughts.